The chamber of the stellar Concordium Senate was built to inspire awe. A transparent dome arched high above the delegates, revealing a sea of stars scattered across the void. Hundreds of representatives sat in concentric rings surrounding a floating tactical display that dominated the center of the room. Grand Marshal Zalcor Veth stood beneath it. With a gesture of his clawed hand, the hologram shifted. Thousands of warships appeared in brilliant blue. The combined strength of the Concordium Expeditionary Fleet, he announced. A second image materialized beside it. A much smaller formation. Humanity's fleet. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Then came laughter. One senator leaned forward. "That's all they have?" Another shook his head. "I was told humans controlled 12 core worlds. I expected more." Zalcor allowed the reaction to continue. He had anticipated it. The comparison was almost embarrassing. The Concordium fielded colossal carriers, fortress ships, and battle groups measured in thousands. Humanity's force looked insignificant beside them. "Our intelligence confirms these figures," Zalcor said. "The Terran Defense Network possesses neither the numbers nor the firepower to contest control of the Helios Gate." A map replaced the fleet display. A glowing corridor stretched across several sectors. The Helios Gate. The most efficient hyperspace route in the region. Trade flowed through it. Fleets moved through it. Entire economies depended on it. And humanity controlled the entrance. Once the gate is secured, Zalcor continued, Terran influence collapses. Their colonies become isolated. Their government will have no choice but to submit. A senator raised a question. "And if they resist?" Zalcor's expression remained unchanged. "They won't resist for long." The vote was called minutes later. Authorization for military action passed almost unanimously. As the session ended, one delegate laughed and said, 30 days should be generous." Zalcor looked at the projection of human space. Far more generous than necessary. Nearly 400 light-years away, nobody was laughing. The command center beneath Terran Defense Headquarters was quiet except for the hum of processors and the movement of tactical displays. Admiral Elias Ward stood at the center platform with his hands clasped behind his back. Unlike the senators who had just approved a war, he was studying details. Fleet positions. Supply routes. Communication nodes. Patterns. Captain Sofia Reyes approached carrying a data tablet. The latest reconnaissance package just arrived. Ward accepted it. "Anything new?" She hesitated. "The Concordium isn't hiding anymore." That answer told him enough. The invasion had begun. Commander Malakchin appeared beside a holographic map. "Confirmed fleet movements from 6 sectors, he reported. "Their main force is heading directly toward the frontier." The display expanded. Blue icons multiplied across the stars. Even experienced officers exchanged uneasy glances. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had expected pressure. Not this. Reyes folded her arms. "That's practically their entire regional military." "Not quite," Chin replied. "That doesn't make me feel better." A few tired smiles appeared around the room. Ward remained focused. He enlarged several sections of the map. The enemy's movements looked orderly. Predictable. Every formation followed established doctrine. Every route supported centralized command. Every advance depended on coordination flowing from a handful of strategic hubs. "Interesting." "Admiral?" Reyes asked. "What are you seeing?" Ward studied the projections a moment longer. "They're assumptions." She frowned. "I'm seeing warships." "So are they." Before she could ask what that meant, an alert flashed across the command deck. Priority channel. Incoming transmission from Earth government. President Amelia Torres appeared moments later in the emergency briefing room. The exhaustion on her face suggested she had not slept. "Tell me how bad it is." Nobody answered immediately. That silence said enough. Chen activated the latest estimates. Fleet strengths filled the air. Torres stared at the figures. 5-1? Approximately, Chen replied. A council member swore under his breath. Another spoke first. We need negotiations. Negotiations won't stop an invasion fleet. It might buy time. It might encourage them. Arguments erupted almost instantly. Some wanted diplomacy. Others demanded full mobilization. Several proposed evacuating frontier colonies before the first attacks arrived. Ward listened without interruption. The discussion continued for nearly 10 minutes before Torres finally looked at him. You haven't said anything. The room became still. Ward glanced toward the tactical display. The enemy advance continued exactly as projected. Fast. Confident. Certain. They're planning for the battle they want, he said. Several officials exchanged confused looks. What does that mean? One asked. Ward looked back at the map. It means they're already convinced they've won. Before anyone could respond, another alarm echoed through the chamber. Every display changed. Frontier sensor network. Emergency priority. A massive hyperspace disturbance had just been detected. Thousands of signatures emerged across the border. For a brief moment, nobody spoke. The scale was difficult to comprehend. Reyes stared at the readings. That's not a fleet. Ward watched the icons spread across the stars. No. His voice remained calm. It's an assumption. The first frontier system fell 6 hours later. No battle. No heroic last stand. The local defense force withdrew before the Concordium Armada entered orbit. Fuel depots were evacuated, databases erased, stations abandoned. Grand Marshal Zalcor considered it proof that humanity understood reality. They're already retreating, one of his officers remarked. As they should, Zalcor replied. From the bridge of the Dominion Spear, he watched icons advance across the tactical display. The operation was unfolding exactly as planned. Human forces were pulling back toward their core territories while Concordium formations secured system after system. A victory measured in days. Not months. Transmit the ultimatum. The communications officer nodded. Moments later, every major channel across human space carried the same message. The image of Zalcor appeared on countless screens. His voice was calm. To the government of Earth. Surrender control of the Helios Gate. Disband all military forces within the frontier sectors. Accept Concordium administration and avoid unnecessary loss of life. He paused. You have 24 hours. The transmission ended. For Zalcor, the matter was settled. For humanity, it was only beginning. Earth Government Complex. Emergency sessions had merged into one endless meeting. The chamber was packed with ministers, military officials, economic advisors, and colonial representatives. Every seat was occupied. Every face looked tired. President Amelia Torres stood beside a projection of the frontier. The ultimatum expires tomorrow. Silence followed. Then the arguments resumed. We cannot win a direct war. We don't know that. We absolutely know that. A colonial representative rose from his chair. My worlds are directly in the invasion path. We need evacuation authority immediately. A defense minister shook his head. There aren't enough transport ships. Then negotiate. And surrender half of human space? The room erupted again. Voices overlapped. Accusations followed. Nobody seemed interested in listening. Admiral Ward remained seated near the far end of the table. Watching. Listening. Calculating. Finally President Torres struck the table hard enough to silence everyone. Enough. The room quieted. She turned toward Ward. You've heard every proposal. What's your assessment? Several heads turned immediately. The Admiral rose. A simulation appeared above the table. Thousands of scenarios flashed across the display. Concentrated defense. Mobile defense. Counterattack. Attrition warfare. Each result ended the same way. Defeat. Nobody spoke while the final projection faded. A minister broke the silence. "So that's it?" "No," Ward replied. The single word drew attention. He enlarged the enemy fleet deployment. "These outcomes assume we fight according to Concordium expectations." "And if we don't?" Torres asked. Ward met her gaze. "Then these projections become irrelevant." Several officials exchanged confused looks. A military advisor frowned. "Explain." Ward zoomed in further. The Concordium fleet resembled a massive spearhead moving through known corridors. Every battle group connected to larger formations. Every formation answered to a central hierarchy. Their doctrine depends on control. One of the ministers folded his arms. "That's called military organization. It's also a vulnerability." The room became still. For the first time all evening, people were paying attention. Ward took a breath. "I want full operational authority." Shock rippled through the chamber. A senator nearly stood from his chair. "You're asking for wartime control of the entire fleet?" "Yes." "Without oversight?" "Without delay." The debate restarted immediately. Too dangerous. Too risky. Too much power. President Torres listened without interruption. Then she looked at Ward. "If I give you this authority, what exactly will you do?" The admiral answered without hesitation. "Decentralize all fleets." For several seconds nobody reacted. Then confusion spread across the room. A defense minister blinked. "You're what?" "Decentralizing fleet command." "That makes no sense." Another official leaned forward. "You're proposing we split our forces apart when we're already outnumbered?" "Correct." The room exploded with objections. Ward allowed them to continue. Eventually Torres raised a hand. "Let him finish." The objections died down. Ward activated another projection. "This invasion assumes our response will be centralized." He highlighted enemy movement patterns. They expect fleets. They expect command chains. They expect predictable reactions. "What are you proposing instead?" asked Torres. Ward looked around the room. Thousands of independent decisions. No one spoke. The idea sounded absurd. Yet Ward's confidence never wavered. "We stop acting like one fleet." A minister frowned. "We'll lose cohesion. We'll gain flexibility. We'll lose firepower. We'll create uncertainty." The room fell quiet again. Ward pointed toward the invasion map. "They know exactly how to fight a fleet." His finger moved toward human territory. "They don't know how to fight 8,000 commanders making their own choices." For the first time, uncertainty appeared among his critics. Not agreement, but hesitation. President Torres studied him for several long moments. Finally she asked one question. "Can this work?" Ward answered honestly. "It's our best chance." The chamber remained silent. One by one, eyes shifted toward the president. The weight of the decision settled over everyone. Outside the room, billions of lives depended on what happened next. Torres exhaled slowly. Then she nodded. Approved. Several ministers immediately protested. She ignored them. Operational authority is transferred to Admiral Ward effective immediately. The decision was made. There would be no reversal. Minutes later, encrypted orders began moving across human space. Ships received them. Stations received them. Task forces received them. Captains opened priority files expecting battle plans. Instead, they found a single directive. No explanations. No speeches. Just 3 words. Execute Independence Protocol. Across hundreds of systems, officers stared at the message. Some were confused. Some were nervous. Some smiled. And somewhere beyond the frontier, an alien armada continued advancing toward a war it believed it already understood. It was wrong. The first reports reached the Concordium flagship 12 hours after Independence Protocol activated. At first, nobody considered them important. A human patrol group had abandoned its assigned sector. Another had split into smaller elements. Several squadrons appeared to be moving without authorization. To Grand Marshal Zalcor, the explanation seemed obvious. "They're losing cohesion," he said. The officers around him agreed. The human military was finally breaking under pressure. At least, that was what everyone believed. 3 systems away, Captain Sofia Reyes smiled as her cruiser drifted in silence between 2 asteroid clusters. The bridge lights remained dim. Every active transmitter was disabled. Her vessel no longer belonged to a larger formation. Neither did hundreds of others. The old command structure had vanished overnight. In its place stood something entirely different. A mission package appeared on her display. Objective: disrupt enemy logistics. Method: captain's discretion. No detailed instructions. No prescribed route. No permission requests. Only a goal. A younger officer glanced at the screen. "That's it?" Reyes nodded. "That's it. What if we choose wrong?" She looked toward the starfield. "Then we adapt." Minutes later, her cruiser accelerated toward an unprotected supply corridor. Throughout the frontier, similar scenes unfolded. Destroyers stalked fuel convoys. Recon ships planted false sensor signatures. Electronic warfare teams flooded communication channels with misleading data. None of these operations were coordinated by direct orders. Each commander identified opportunities and acted. The result resembled chaos. The reality was something else entirely. Inside Terran Defense Headquarters, Admiral Ward watched the reports arrive. Not battle reports. Patterns. Supply interruptions. Delays. Course corrections. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would make headlines. Yet every successful action added pressure. Commander Malakchin stepped beside him. The enemy lost 3 fuel shipments in the last 6 hours. Ward nodded. Expected. Several convoys changed routes. Also expected. Chin studied the growing web of data. "Do you ever worry this won't work?" Ward finally looked away from the displays. "Every hour." The honesty surprised him. But Ward returned his attention to the frontier. They're responding exactly as predicted. Aboard the Dominion Spear, confidence remained high. For now. Zalcor reviewed logistics updates while his fleet advanced deeper into human territory. Several supply disruptions had occurred. Annoying. Nothing more. Then another report arrived. Then another. Then another. His communications officer shifted uneasily. "Marshal, we've lost contact with Relay Station 17. Zalcor frowned. "Destroyed?" "Unknown." Minutes later a second alert appeared. A navigation beacon had gone offline. Then a transport convoy vanished. No distress signal. No survivors. The bridge grew quieter. "How many separate incidents?" Zalcor asked. 43. The answer irritated him. Not because of the losses. Because they lacked a pattern. Military operations followed structure. These attacks did not. Captain Reyes found her next target by accident. A sensor operator noticed unusual traffic moving through a nearby corridor. The convoy had altered course after receiving emergency instructions. Instructions generated by human deception teams. Reyes studied the new route. The enemy ships would pass directly through a dense debris field. A dangerous shortcut. In an ideal ambush location. She grinned. Prepare missile batteries. The executive officer blinked. We weren't assigned this target. We are now. Hours later, burning wreckage drifted among shattered rocks. The convoy never reached its destination. Reyes transmitted a brief report and moved on. No celebration. No request for recognition. Another opportunity already awaited. The first signs of concern appeared inside the Concordium command network 2 days later. Fleet schedules were slipping. Resupply windows were being missed. Communication traffic had doubled. Entire departments were working around the clock. Every new problem demanded another response. Every response required approval. Every approval consumed time. Zalcor stared at a wall of incoming requests. Redirect escorts. Investigate disappearances. Protect supply routes. Replace damaged relays. The workload kept growing. What are the humans doing? He demanded. An intelligence officer hesitated. We're not entirely certain. The answer did not improve his mood. Meanwhile, human captains continued operating independently. Some missions failed. Several ships were lost. One destroyer squadron was intercepted and annihilated while attacking a convoy. The casualties hit hard. Ward reviewed every report personally. Each death mattered. Every commander understood the risks. Yet replacements volunteered immediately. Not because they expected victory. Because they believed their actions had purpose. That belief carried weight. 3 days after the protocol began, Zalcor received a comprehensive intelligence assessment. He read the document twice. Then a third time. The conclusions were difficult to accept. Human attacks showed no central pattern. No obvious hierarchy. No predictable response cycle. Each engagement appeared driven by local initiative. Finally he looked up. Who is coordinating these operations? The intelligence analyst exchanged nervous glances with his colleagues. Then he answered. No single commander, sir. Zalcor narrowed his eyes. The analyst swallowed. It appears they're all making decisions independently. Silence filled the bridge. For the first time since the campaign began, uncertainty entered the room. Because suddenly the human fleet no longer looked disorganized. It looked impossible to predict. 3 weeks into the campaign, the Stellar Concordium controlled more territory than ever. On paper, Grand Marshal Zalcor was winning. His fleets occupied frontier systems. Human forces continued withdrawing from fixed positions. No major engagement had taken place. The path toward the Helios Gate remained open. Yet nothing felt right. The reports arriving aboard the Dominion Spear told a different story. Fuel reserves were running behind schedule. Replacement parts were delayed. Communication relays required constant repair. Supply officers submitted emergency requests daily. The numbers were small individually. Together, they formed a growing problem. Zalcor stared at the latest briefing. How many logistics interruptions this week? 112 confirmed incidents. The answer darkened his expression. And fleet readiness? The officer hesitated. 83%. 3 weeks earlier it had been 98. Something was bleeding his invasion force. Slowly. Relentlessly. In Terran Defense Headquarters, Admiral Ward watched the same campaign from a very different perspective. A massive display covered one wall. Not fleets. Connections. Supply routes. Relay stations. Maintenance hubs. Fuel depots. The network that allowed the Concordium war machine to function. Commander Malik Chin entered carrying fresh reports. Another relay cluster is offline. Ward nodded. Expected. Reyes struck a logistics node near Carthus. Damage? Significant. Chin paused before adding, she's getting creative. A faint smile crossed Ward's face. That's the point. Every independent commander was adapting to local conditions. New opportunities emerged daily. Successful tactics spread through the fleet's quantum communication network. Captains learned from one another without waiting for orders from above. The system improved itself. Captain Sofia Reyes was proving that theory right. Her cruiser drifted above a moon orbiting an unremarkable gas giant. At first glance, the location seemed worthless. It wasn't. A concealed Concordium fuel depot had been discovered there only hours earlier by a human reconnaissance vessel. Under traditional doctrine, Reyes would have filed a report and waited for authorization. Instead, she was already planning the attack. Her tactical officer looked uncertain. "We don't know how heavily defended it is. We know enough. And if reinforcements arrive?" Reyes checked the timer on her display. "Then we'll be gone before they get here." The strike lasted 6 minutes. Precision missiles destroyed storage facilities. Railgun rounds crippled docking platforms. By the time enemy patrol ships responded, the cruiser had disappeared into hyperspace. Millions of liters of fuel burned in orbit. Another wound. Another delay. The situation aboard the Dominion Spear deteriorated steadily. Zalcor spent most of his time managing consequences. Every day introduced fresh complications. Escort requests. Missing convoys. Damaged infrastructure. Communication bottlenecks. The campaign was becoming increasingly inefficient. That bothered him more than the losses themselves. He summoned his senior staff. The mood inside the briefing chamber was noticeably different from the confidence of earlier weeks. "We end this now," Zalcor said. A tactical map appeared. The Helios Gate glowed near the center. "Our fleet advances directly toward the objective." One officer nodded. "A decisive engagement." "Exactly. No more chasing raiders. No more reacting to disruptions. One overwhelming offensive. Humanity would be forced to fight." The plan received immediate approval. At last, the Concordium would bring its superior strength to bear. News of the offensive reached Earth within minutes. Ward studied the projected fleet movements in silence. Captain Reyes appeared via encrypted link. "They're committing everything." "They are. So this is it?" Ward folded his arms. "No." Reyes raised an eyebrow. The Admiral enlarged the tactical display. Several hidden markers appeared along the enemy's route. Supply hubs. Relay stations. Navigation infrastructure. Targets. "They're focused on reaching Helios Gate," Ward said. "Which means they'll expose everything behind them." Understanding flashed across her face. A slow grin followed. "Oh." Ward nodded. "Exactly." The next 72 hours became a nightmare for Concordium logistics. Human task groups struck simultaneously across multiple sectors. Fuel reserves vanished. Maintenance facilities suffered sabotage. Relay stations stopped responding. The attacks appeared unrelated. In reality, they shared one purpose: stretch the enemy command structure beyond its limits. Requests for assistance flooded headquarters. Approvals lagged behind events. Officers waited hours for decisions that once required minutes. Entire formations operated with outdated information. The cracks widened. Then came the incident that changed everything. Near the outer approaches to Helios Gate, a major Concordium command node entered a narrow transit corridor. The vessel coordinated traffic for hundreds of nearby ships. Destroying it would create chaos. The target was heavily protected. Most commanders would have avoided it. Captain Reyes did not. Her cruiser emerged from hyperspace at extreme range. Missiles launched immediately. Defensive batteries intercepted many. Not all. Explosions ripped through the command vessel. Its communication array vanished in a storm of fire. Seconds later, the ship went dark. The entire sector lost coordination. Fleet movement stalled. Orders stopped flowing. Confusion spread. Hours later, Zalcor reviewed the damage report personally. The room remained silent as he finished reading. For the first time since entering human space, doubt crept into his thoughts. Not because of one destroyed vessel. Because every solution seemed to create another problem. The humans weren't stronger. They weren't larger. Yet somehow they were everywhere. Always striking where attention was weakest. Always forcing reactions. Zalcor walked toward the observation window overlooking the stars. They aren't fighting like a fleet, he said quietly. Nobody answered. Hundreds of light years away, Admiral Ward stood before his own tactical display. Watching the same battle unfold. A message from Reyes confirmed the command node's destruction. Ward read it once. Then looked back at the shifting map. Exactly, he said. And for the first time, the momentum of the war began to change.